Alright, class. Just want to do a quick video today to help you with writing about literature. I wanted to do a lot more videos this summer, but I've sorely underestimated the pacing of summer semester, and particularly as it applies to grading. Most of my time has been spent grading and not on instruction, which I don't like. I would very much prefer that we would be in person so that you could all come to class and I could talk to you and help make this stuff make more sense. But we're near the end. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and so I'm taking basically a help me, help you approach, and I hope you'll do the same. So tips for writing about literature. This final essay is supposed to prepare you for lit, in a sense, which is the second of the 1102 class. So the first thing you're going to want to do, number one, choose your text or texts, and I'll put all of these in the description on this video, so you can go down and look at these and follow along as I go through them. Choose your text or text. So you can do one text, you can do two, you can do four if you really want. You just want to make sure that you don't branch off in too many different directions. If you can get several texts sort of under the same umbrella, then good. But try not to create an argument that just goes off all over the place, because that can be an issue. And that brings me to number two. Create an argument which answers the prompt. Now this is, I think, the big distinction between writing about literature in analytical essay form and writing about literature in the response paper form. Now with the response papers, I just wanted you to read the text and tell me what you thought about it and answer a couple of questions that I provided. In this, I want you to create an argument about how literature can affect human perspective or change the world or whatever the specific wording in the prompt is. So an argument is, like I said in the second essay, it rests on an argumentative claim. But instead of that claim being a general argument about something in the world that we should do, it's going to be an argument about how these texts prove that literature can change the world. Does that make sense? So, well, you can't answer me, but I hope so. So do not simply summarize. That's point number three. A lot of people just have kind of an inclination to summarize all of the texts and kind of submit a document without a cohesive argument. The big thing is I want to see that you can structure an argument that's based on claims, but center and focus those claims on the literature itself. So the thesis is like the big claim, the big overarching claim, which talks about all of the works of literature or all of the contributions they make. And then the topic sentences are specified claims, which go at the start of each body paragraph. And they're more specified. So like if you had a thesis statement and you were talking about how literature can change the world because through these techniques, X, Y, and Z, and therefore, so what, right? That's your thesis claim. And then you would to create topic sentences where you focus on specific works of literature, like maybe you do each one or something like that. So I'll provide that sort of layout. 4 claims. I'll read it to you again. It's literature can affect change through W, X, and Y means, and therefore Z so what factor. So what is the so what factor? The so what factor is why we should care. Why should we care about literature? Why does literature matter to you? Maybe it doesn't. Maybe a lot of you found the text. I get a lot of complaints about how the texts are sort of dark, or they're hard to get through, or they're not always easy to understand. And I hear that, I do. But for me, I like to take you outside of your comfort zone. And, you know, the world isn't all sunshine and rainbows, and most literature is actually not sunshine and rainbows. Most literature is really dark. You know, there isn't a whole lot to pick from that doesn't hit that particular qualification. So you want to make sure that you think about, you know, how the literature can affect perspective and how it can affect human behavior. Can it? Maybe you want to argue that it can't. I'm open to that as well. So create topic sentence claims, which are very similar in structure to the thesis, but which focus on the specifics of a single text. So it's like you're breaking the big argument down. You take the big argument about how literature can change things in general, and then you break it down into smaller pieces using each of the texts that you're using, or maybe one text, 3 different paragraphs, different specifics from that text or text. So it's like you're going from localized, or I'm sorry, generalized to localized, big to little, broad to specific, right? Okay. So provide direct quotes from the text to be used as evidence. Don't just summarize the text as your evidence. Provide direct quotes. A lot of you guys kind of have this habit of like summarizing or generalizing or not going to do the quotes. You need to provide direct quotes, if for no other reason than to get you in the habit of doing it. Quoting things directly is always the best way to use something as evidence because you don't run the risk of changing what is said. A lot of times if you summarize something, you might put something down that's not quite what's in the text, and you might create problems that way. So always quote directly. Now, when you quote directly, you're going to be using quotation marks, of course, but you also want to have what's called a lead-in statement. So a lot of times what happens is that these quotes will just sort of drop out of the sky, and I'll find them in the essay, and I'm like, where did this quote come from? She was writing a sentence here, and then they just ended the sentence and opened a quote. I don't know where this quote comes from. I don't know who wrote it. I don't know if it's a study, if it's a book. I have no idea. So you need to say, according to so-and-so, or in one text we read, and then provide a quote, right? And that lead-in statement, those few words at the start, let me have some sort of context that tells me where this quote came from. Okay, I'm sorry that the camera is wiggling all over the place. I have this laptop on me. Okay, I call it like I said, an alien landing, when the quote just drops out of the sky. Woo, I have no idea where it came from. So use a lead-in statement to prevent alien landings. Use parenthetical citations at the end of each quote. Now, what is a parenthetical citation? You should know from the second essay. It is the parentheses at the end of the quote, which has, generally speaking, the author's last name and the page number or page range from which comes the quote. Okay, so you really want to make sure that you use citations. Citations are key. If for no other reason than practice, right? So, okay, number 9, provide analysis for each quote. I call this explain the bloody knife. So the example I use is when you're providing evidence. Let's say that I walk into the classroom one day. This is a hypothetical, it's sort of grim, but let's say that this happens. I walk into the class one day and there is a bloody knife on one of the desks in class, okay? Or it's a knife that appears to be covered in blood. Now, just looking at that knife, that piece of evidence, what can I discern? Now, you may just jump to something and say, well, somebody stabbed somebody. Okay, maybe, but there's a lot of other reasons a knife could be bloody. Maybe it's a prop for the drama club. Maybe someone was gutting a deer in the parking lot and forgot to leave their knife in the car. Maybe, it doesn't, to jump to murder as the only logical conclusion, it is a possible conclusion, it's even a likely conclusion, but it's not the only one you can draw. So I always say analyze quotes, because when you analyze quotes, you explain to me how the quote proves the claim that you've set forth in the body paragraph, and therefore you eliminate any sort of room for error for me to go, wait, what does this evidence mean? I don't get it. This could mean completely something else. I don't see the connection they're making. Explain it to me. Always provide several lines of analysis in your own words after you provide a quote. Okay. Let's see. Avoid the first person I. I didn't really crack down on the use of I for the response papers or for any of the early essays. The reason being is because, especially for some of those strategies that you were using, like narration, for example, it's hard not to use I when you're narrating a story, right? Because, it's something that happened to you specifically. But generally speaking, in academic writing, we don't use the word I. And this is because it's not really about your opinions. It's about what you can prove. It's about what you can verify. It's about what you can nail down. So if you're focused on sort of postulating and providing opinions, you're not really thinking about evidence. And also, you guys are not at a point of expertise yet. You go to school so that you can get expertise in a certain field. Once you have expertise in that field, you can speak about subjects with some assurance. And you can say I because your credibility matters. But without that expertise, you're not really, your opinion is not as important because you're not an expert, right? Experts' opinions are relevant because they have the credentials. Okay, so we're not going to get too much more into that. Just try to weed out I. If you think it's impossible, I promise you it's not. You can always get rid of it. Don't repeat the arguments in the conclusion. There is a lot of tendency to do this. Many of you may have even been told, I don't know what's going on with these birds in my yard, sorry. Many of you may have been told that the conclusion is for repetition of the argument. And I understand why that is the case. However, I don't like to read everything that I just read again at the end of the essay. I think that's kind of redundant. I think a lot of times it just takes up words and doesn't really tell me anything that I don't already know. So try to use the conclusion to create closure and don't repeat too much what you have to say. Okay. Don't copy and paste from your response assignments. This is going to be big. Okay. Now, I am assigning the same text that you've been writing on all semester, so all of you, assumedly, have writing samples on these texts. Resist the temptation, please, to copy and paste large swaths of your previous work. Because, for one, I didn't ask you to make the same kind of argumentative claims and claim structure that I did for this assignment, so it won't really match. And the other reason is there's something called dovetailing or self-plagiarism, which is also an academic violation. If you recycle assignments from one class to another or one assignment to another, and they're supposed to be unique assignments, that's technically academic dishonesty. So please do not just, and the rule I'm setting for this essay, it's not on the prompt, but just between all of you and I right now, the rule is I want you to keep the similarity report around or below 30%. Now, if there is some error, I'm not going to nail you for plagiarism unless you try to pass off words either that you have already written or from somewhere else as your own. But I would still like you to keep the plagiarism, to keep the percentage on the lower side, because you're supposed to generate a unique assignment. And you're supposed to, I'm supposed to be hearing more from you and your analysis. So I need to see a lot of the majority of the text on the page needs to be original work. Okay. So I'm just kind of setting that as a loose rule / guideline, but be advised, if you self-plagiarize and recycle your assignments, you're going to have a bad time. And then the last one is please provide a works cited page. I gave you citations to use on the assignment, so it's very easy for you this time. But I do want you to have that works cited page on there. I do want you guys to follow MLA. Please look at your essay 1 for information about MLA feedback that I put on there. I am grading your essay 2 currently, and I should be done with that in the next couple of days. So you will also have that writing sample to inform your final essay. So that's all I have to say right now. If you have any questions, you can email me. Please email me. Don't use the Blackboard messaging system, please, for the 1,000th time. People still do it. I don't know. I've said it before, but it still happens. So, and the other thing I want to say is, I just want to let you guys know that I hear you. I hear your frustrations. I feel your stress. And the reason that I feel it is because I have it myself. This has been crazy. Summer pacing is already nuts. And to remove the in-class dialogue that we would have had to facilitate the learning process has been an extreme hindrance to this process. And I have found it very difficult myself to keep up with the demands. I have been given an extra class from normal course load. That's not really important to you guys, but just understand that I have been working tirelessly, and I know you have too. And so help me, help you. I'm not saying that I'm going to let you redo assignments from 2 months ago, but I am saying that, communication, understanding, it's all crucial at this point in the semester, because nobody is having a good time at this point in the semester, okay? Just remember that. So with that being said, you guys have a lovely evening, and as always, stay safe.